Hi, my name is Courtney Camphin. I am the Special Projects Coordinator at the Spiritual Life Center. As most of you know, we are going through a period of transition between some leadership. Oscar Brockmeyer has stepped down, and we are stepping into having a new executive director. And I'm really, really excited to have Nancy Benben, who will be taking that position with me tonight. Hi, Nancy.
Great. Thanks, Courtney. Um, it's really great to be here. It is an honor and it's daunting and it's a huge privilege to be taking on this role. And glad that Oscar will still be here as director of programs and program leader, and that I will be working side by side with him as executive leader, and of course working with you and the other wonderful members of staff. So I'm very excited about getting started, and very happy to be talking to you today. This is a wonderful process to be going through.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's some wonderful opportunities ahead of us. So, for people who may not know you or may not be familiar with you, would you mind sharing maybe a little snippet of who's Nancy Benben?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I am, believe it or not, a transplant from the Chicago area. I went to school out there, had a lot of firsts out there. And I think of myself very much as a Midwesterner. I was raised obviously by people from the Midwest, and it was a difference to come to Connecticut. Very, very big difference, but learned to love it. And now, of course, I was part of the COVID exodus that moved out to Cape Cod. We've had a house out here for a number of years, and we moved about a year before COVID hit, and COVID had just accelerated things quite a bit. I am married. I have three children. We have three children between us, one of whom is getting married this summer.
Oh,
So this
wow.
is pretty exciting. Yes, yes, my daughter is getting married. So this is a big event in the family right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I have always had a career from professionally that's been a blend of communications as well as marketing, as well as facilitation, and some fundraising as well. And about 12 years ago, I decided to switch the focus of my career from corporate, where I had spent most of my time, to really be very much around nonprofits and be in the nonprofit world, because I felt it was really time to live my passions and to also live my conscience and to give back a little bit.
Mm.
So the last 12, 13 years or so have been spent in nonprofits. And in the Hartford area, as well as out here in the Cape Cod area, Northeast. So that's a little bit about my career.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Um, so I've heard your name around a bunch around the center. You came and did a wonderful presentation on the Enneagram in our internship. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your history with the Spiritual Life Center, because it seems like you have a fair bit.
Sure, sure. Well, I think of the Spiritual Life Center almost as my second home. It is a
Mm.
place where I've spent a lot of time virtually, and of course in person. So I've always known to have a presence of the divine in my life. There has never been a time in my growing up and in my earliest years where I haven't really sensed a spirit or a God or just something bigger than me. I've always had that sense. Obviously, it's changed quite a bit through the years, and as I've gained wisdom and learned and gone down different paths. But it's always been very central to my life. When I guess it was about 2005, 2006, I was in part of the Women's Leadership Institute in what is now HIU, what was then Hartford Seminary. And that really kicked up my leadership and kicked up my spirituality quite a bit. And it broadened my horizons. And I learned about different aspects of my spirituality and spirituality in general that I wasn't really aware of. And so it both broadened and deepened. So that got me a little more involved in the spiritual world as another part of my life, more than just, attending a faith community. Um, and then, believe it or not, when my husband and I were on our honeymoon, we went to the Omega Institute, which is in Rhinebeck, New York,
Yeah.
and we took part. Have you been there?
I've driven by it.
Oh,
I'm
it's an
familiar.
amazing place.
Hmm.
Amazing place. So, um, uh, part of my one of my what I think of as a spiritual mentor who has no idea who I am, but a spiritual mentor has been Elizabeth Lesser, who is one of
Hmm.
the founders of Omega Institute, and she was leading a retreat just on your own spirituality, and she's written many books, and who all of which have really spoken to me. So when she was leading this retreat, we decided, well, let's just go for 4 days as part of our honeymoon. And after that was over, it was truly life changing. And I came out of that retreat knowing I have to find more of this in my day-to-day life. I
Mm.
must find a place or a world or a way that I can just really continue to nurture my spirituality. So I called at that time the most spiritually connected person I knew was Melina Rudman, who is a former executive director of Spiritual Life Center. And she said, I know just this place. And she introduced me to the Spiritual Life Center. I had no idea it was even in my backyard. And I started in spiritual companionship. And then I also took the Pathways program, which was um, it was a program that really enabled folks to see a very broad range of spiritual traditions and spiritual paths. Joe Coletti was one of the teachers. And at the same time, they were starting to recruit for the internship program. So I picked up one of the brochures for the internship program, and I just had this amazing energy that came through me. And I knew that that was my holy speaking to me. And I opened the brochure and I read it and I said, why, yes, I must have this. So I went through the internship program. I became a partner, and then after that, I was one of the teachers with Oscar, as well as Louise. I took Louise Coletti's place, so Oscar and Andre and I were a team for one session. So it's been a part of my life for a really long time. I went through the supervisory program. I also learned about biospiritual focusing, and been taking many, many, many other programs. Obviously, I still see a number of seekers, and I'm a supervisor as well. So I think the other formative part about the Spiritual Life Center for me and my involvement there was when we were going through a pretty tumultuous time about 6 or so years ago. And there was a very, very big change in leadership. And there were a lot of questions around what is it that we are at the Spiritual Life Center? And now, in this tumult, where is Spirit leading us? What is it that we really need to be? And so we decided as a community to do a year of discernment, and I was leading the committee that took us through and the community through a year of discernment to really consider, where is God leading us now? What is it that we are meant to be? And that was an amazing year of deep wisdom of the men and women around me as part of that committee, as well as the community who gave us incredible guidance, and has all been part of the path of where the spiritual life center is now. So that's a little bit of my involvement in the Spiritual Life Center.
If that's a little bit, it must be. I mean,
Well, I look at,
it's a lot.
I feel like a newbie still, so much to
Hmm.
learn. There is so much great wisdom, and there are so many people from whom I learn at the Spiritual Life Center. I still feel very much like a newbie, and, very much more secure in my footing as a spiritual
Hmm.
companion and all of that, all of what I do. But I also know how much there is to know and how much I don't know. And it's
Mm.
wonderful to have wisdom around me to help guide and to help me learn and keep learning and my whole spiritual life, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I feel almost identical, and I actually am a very newbie because I think I've been connected with the center now for maybe 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Um, I really like what you shared just now about your kind of entryway into the internship, because when I um, first was looking into receiving spiritual direction, I also saw the application for the internship, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I think I need to do it. And it was about a year before I applied for it, but there was just something there that I had no idea why I wanted to apply for this thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But there was just something that said, you need to do this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and here
And
we
you
are.
listened.
I did. I'm learning to do that.
It is
Oh, that's
amazing when you say yes.
mm-hmm.
It's
It
amazing the
is.
doors that open, the paths that suddenly appear that you didn't see before. And it's
Yeah.
simply by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know, you shared a bit about being with a spiritual companion as a seeker. And for those of you who don't know, a seeker is also a directee. There are some terms that are changing. The term spiritual director and spiritual companion, kind of interchangeable. Directee, seeker, also interchangeable. But as you've been with a spiritual companion or spiritual director, is there anything that you feel comfortable sharing that you learned about yourself or the divine in that process?
Oh, boy. So wait, how much time do we have? That is
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
big
big
question.
question. But it is something that continues to inform me about who I am and my journey, and most
Mm,
importantly, my relationship with the divine. And I do use a lot of terms for divine. I use holy, my spirit, God. It is all the same to me, something that is bigger than me, that I have an intimate and close relationship with, and yet is still quite a mystery, and
mhm,
yet not at all.
yeah.
It is that both and that is one of the things that I have become much more comfortable with through spiritual companionship, is that the light and the dark, the good and the bad, the growth and the pulling back, the reaching out and the pushing away, all of those things are one of whole. Dame Julian of Norwich talks about this quite a bit, where we can exist and do exist of one body, of this light and dark together. And I think that's a beautiful thing. These are not, it's not
Mhm,
either or a both and. It is always both and. And I think through spiritual companionship, what I really learned is that to be comfortable in that, and to not always believe that it's going, if light is good, um the dark is also good. There is so much to learn and so much juiciness going on under there
mhm,
that we don't even know about, but I've learned to trust it. um and being very attuned to holy, um I have a sense of holy in a couple of ways. One is just a sense of energy. I just have a sense of energy that comes through me somewhere, that is just, for me, my spirit, Holy Spirit. But I also know that God is actually, I'm hearing God when I also have a sense of a wry grin. Like suddenly, yes, you got it. Yes, yes.
mhm,
And so there's this almost a giggle, a laugh, a chuckle that is also how I know that I am very aware and attuned to holy. So spiritual companionship has helped me do all of that, among other contemplative practices that I have.
mm,
But that's the biggie.
mm. I love how you started that with, it's an ongoing thing. It's not just, well, I learned this and I'm done. Because it is. It's ever evolving.
It is. And yet I do have seekers come to me because they have something quite specific in
Hmm.
mind.
Hmm.
It could be, um, I'm thinking about a different job, and I want to make sure that I just really want to really hone in on that discernment, and just see where God is on that decision, and which path is the right path. Some come when they are in the deepest of depths of despair, And as they feel the veil lifting a little bit and the light opening, then there's a little bit of a releasing of spiritual companionship for them. And then I have some that they're almost like the tide, that for a while they go way out and I don't see them. And then suddenly they come in and they really want to re-engage. And that's totally okay. Everybody's journey is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm walking with, I'm not guiding
Mm.
toward.
I
Yeah.
love that. So, given your highly interwoven history with the center and your experience as a companion, as a supervisor, and as a seeker, how does that inform how you are framing your vision for the future of the center?
So I know that this center has an incredible foundation. 40 years. We are about to
Mhm.
celebrate our 40th anniversary. That
Yeah,
is a big milestone
it
and
is.
impressive, right? I mean, an organization that is thriving and healthy, but also transforming. I mean,
Hmm.
think about how the center pivoted. It seemed on the outside, again, I was doing some teaching, but I haven't been nearly as involved as you are in the center. But it appeared that the pivot during COVID to pure virtual was seamless. There was a lot already set up. And so that move seemed, compared to other nonprofits that I am involved with, seemed quite easy. And so that's part of the beauty of the Spiritual Life Center, that there's an awareness that there is a time where there needs to be moving and transforming, and yet the underpinnings and the foundation are always there.
Hmm.
There's a depth and a commitment of both the leaders who have come before me, the folks like you and others who are helping keep this train running on time and working at its fullest capacity, and most importantly, the community. There is vast wisdom in the community that has been listened to and has guided and has been a critical part of making the Spiritual Life Center what it is today. And that is that is going to be what I tap into and what we all will be tapping into as we consider what's next in this
Hmm.
point of transition. We're in a great place. And so how do we really think about where we are heading and what's next? COVID has had some horrific issues that have come along with it. And as I was saying before, also some amazing
Hmm.
opportunities. Because we are virtual, we have people coming from around the globe. I'm teaching a class now where one of our members is from Cameroon. He gets
Hmm.
up at 12 o'clock
Hmm.
at night and
Yep.
comes to this class. It's amazing. And we have people across the United States. So that opens a whole world. It
Mm.
also creates some questions. How do you create this sense of community in a more
Mm.
virtual landscape? How do we together create that sense of connectivity when the connectivity is wireless? And yet, I also know that this is holy ground. Our conversation, even though you are in West Hartford and I am in Eastham, Massachusetts, this is holy ground between us. And so
Hmm.
that is also possible. And yet, how do we make sure that that is maintained and that sense of community will evolve? And what does that look like? I'm not sure, but I have a wonderful community of wise men and women and others who will come together
Mm.
and help us discern this. Um, so I'm really blessed to be standing on these very, very, very broad shoulders of amazing people, and with whom I still get to work as we think about what's next. And do I have ideas of what's possible? Of course, the board and I have ideas. You and I have ideas. We all have these great
Yeah.
ideas, but we're going to tap into the wisdom of the community every step of the way,
Hmm.
so that we are hearing what's going on, and we are hearing other ideas. And community can be a sounding board for what we are thinking as well.
Mm.
Um, So, one of the things that the board and I have been talking about, Lisa and Dorothy and Oscar and I, is starting a community, a time of community listening. And so, what we might have called town hall meetings in the past, it will really be gatherings of listening sessions. What's going on now? How are people feeling? What are they thinking about? Um, we have this great relationship with HIU, where that might be going. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about fundraising. Fundraising will be a key point, a key focus of some of our work moving forward, because we have all of these great ideas, and yet they take funding. So how we'll come up with some plans around that as well. And so it's all going to start by listening to the community. It's going to start by dreaming and visioning together and seeing how we can then take these visions, building on this phenomenal foundation, and see where Holy is taking us in this next stage of the Spiritual Life Center's journey. It's exciting.
It is. And thank you for answering that potentially difficult question. When I think of the center, one of the things that, aside from the obvious things, one of the things that stands out to me the most, and I think is really wonderful, is I think of it as a bit of a crossroads. And what I mean by that is, so I'm in my late 30s, and I've been spending time with people in their mid to late 70s that I probably never would have come in contact with outside of here. And it's amazing. And I love it. Obviously, not everyone's in their mid to late 70s, but I use that to kind of make an example. And the thing that stuck out to me about your answer was exactly that, of honoring and respecting and engaging with the wisdom of our history as we look to how to move forward.
Exactly right. Exactly right. That I can't remember who said this, but the adage of those who do not learn from the past are destined to repeat it. But there are parts of our past that we want to maintain.
Yeah.
There are parts and core parts of what we have done that have made us what we are. And that was part of that year of discernment, really bringing us down to, okay, what is it that we stand for? What is it what purpose are we serving in this community? And so now we've been branching out and doing some other things. There were also some really interesting ideas that came out from that time that we put in the parking lot and said, well, maybe we'll consider these another time, not right yet. And there's always the not yet. And so, who knows? But one of the things I do know is that I am very blessed to know that I'm not going to be doing this alone. This is a daunting job. It's a big job. And I am buoyed by the confidence that this community will be rallying with me, and we'll be linking arms, and we will be moving forward together, moving sideways together, who knows? But I'm buoyed by the fact that I'm not alone in this, and that I have wonderful support and wisdom all around me.
Man, you're making me excited.
Yay!
That's great. And I mean that. That's awesome. So I like to end each and every one of these videos with asking everyone the exact same question. And that is, what do you enjoy most about being a spiritual companion?
That is such a great question. And I think one of the things I enjoy the most is being on what I call the spirit currents. So, you're a spiritual companion. You're just about to graduate from the program. It's very, very exciting, and you're on solid ground. Your feet are on solid ground as you move forward in this new part of who you are. But what I experience is what I call spirit currents, and it's when the three of us, myself, my seeker, and the holy, are just on this wave of oneness, and it feels effortless. And there is a sense of energy, and that we are moving together as we listen to one another. And so that's the part that I love the most. That's certainly not a whole hour of a session. Sometimes it's just fleeting, sometimes it's more
Hmm.
than that. But oof, when we catch that spirit current, that to me is the best part about being a spiritual companion. And then through that, watching these awarenesses come through, seeing new insights happen, sometimes painful parts breaking open and breaking loose and light shining in. It is truly a mystery and a miracle and a huge privilege, and one I take both seriously but joyously at the same time.
Thank you for that. It, it made me think of surfing.
Yes.
You're in the water and that current's always there, and sometimes you catch the wave, sometimes you don't, but you're still in it.
Yeah.
I
That is
don't.
a that's a great metaphor. And then I can say that there have been times when the wave, I've been in spiritual companionship and I'm walking with someone and suddenly a wave comes from nowhere, and how did that happen? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's that too. There's that too. And then that beauty of when you're brought back up to the surface, and all is well.
Hmm. Well, thank you, Nancy. I am truly and really excited to see what comes next, and I'm excited that you're a part of that.
Yeah. Well, I am, again, I'm humbled by this. I'm really glad we're going to be working together. I'm excited about
Mm.
getting to know the whole staff even more, and where we will walk together as we walk in community toward this. We are our big room at Holy Family is called Anamkara, and
Hmm.
we are a community of Anamkaras. And
Hmm.
I'm excited and um, anxious really to get started with walking with our anamkaras toward whatever the holy is going to lead us to be.
Mm. Well, thank you for taking time to answer my
Pleasure.
questions.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for doing this.